Hi everyone. Today we'll be talking about the bottom billion. What is a bottom billion? A bottom billion is a book authored by Paul Collier, and Paul Collier is a known economist in particularly in African countries. He studied the African economics, and also he's a professor and a noted author and a former World Bank director also. Now, let me illustrate this topic. I have here the this represents the world population, and as you can see, there are pebbles here which represents the bottom billion, and this is the majority of the population. So in the international poverty line, the bottom in according to statistics, we are now in 2023, we are now 8 billion people. So with that 8 billion, 1 billion of that is living in poverty. And most of these countries belong to the African countries and some Asian countries too, like Kazakhstan, etc. So the international poverty line defines this as those living with an income of 1.90 US dollar, which roughly around 114. Because in peso and dollar conversion, we have $1 is equivalent to 58 pesos right now. So yeah, it's roughly 114 pesos or less. So imagine that what a devastating idea is that when you have only with that amount of money to survive in a day. So yeah, it's really sad. It's very very sad. So there is what we call a global stratification or unequal distribution of wealth. So in global stratification in world after the World War II, they classified the world as first country, second country, and third world country. So of course, the first countries are the industrialized one, and but some experts and economists would not prefer to to say this as first and second and third because it's like with it's only linked to whether the country is a capitalist or a socialist. They said, and then it's an old model because it's only it connotes politics only whether you are a capitalist or a socialist country. But right now they have this new model. The economists and experts, they have this the first income earner, the middle income earner, and the low income earner countries, which they prefer favorably like this because it's what um it gives a bit better picture of the relative economic development of a certain country. So, but yeah, Philippines belongs to the third world country, so it's a very sad reality. Now, Collier um have this four he cited four traps, the four economic traps of the bottom billion. First, let's discuss it. The first is the conflict trap. So what is this conflict trap? So Collier said that when military aggression, people are like very chaotic and there is presence of war in a certain country, it's likely to become a bottom billion because investors will not put up their will not invest in that country. How will I invest in that country when that country is chaotic in the first place? So, but I'm not saying this. uh there's always a exception in every rule. For example, in Israel now, we all know that they are what they are they there's always a war in Israel and Palestine, but Israel does not belong to the third world country. It's a very rich country, but I'm saying this is a majority. because in African countries there is always a civil wars in Cook. So with that, they really fall into the bottom billion. So it's really a disadvantage for a country when, as what I've mentioned earlier, it discourage the investors to invest in that country. It will uh, it will lose the trust and confidence of the international community. And we all know that when there's presence of war, the infrastructure will be destroyed, and yeah, it will take time for an economy to rise again and to build this infrastructure which has been destroyed by the wars. And let's move now to the second trap is the natural resources trap, or sometimes also called as resource trap. Now, it's like a paradox of plenty. Why? Because why is it that um, there is a resources, but and it yeah, it's a natural resource, so it should be an advantage of the country. But why is it so that becomes a disadvantage? It becomes a disadvantage because when the corrupt officials, poor governance comes into the picture, it will really a threat for economic collapse of a certain country. And also this what we call a Dutch disease. So let's dive deep into this what we call a economic term, the Dutch disease. So what is this Dutch disease all about? Dutch disease is, for example, I will try to give you an example. In northern hemisphere country, I forgot what is that country? Netherlands. In Netherlands, they found in 1978, I think they found this a very rich natural deposit of oil. So with that, it attracts the international community, and then the investors keep coming into their country, and then the foreign currency becomes so strong, and the Netherlands currency became weak, and with that, it affects the traditional sector like the non-oil sector like manufacturing and agricultural. So with this, um, because in every business, in any businesses, it always oil really comes into play because for transportation, how will you transport your business? So when oil becomes expensive now, your production cost becomes high. So with that, you're going to increase your the price of your goods, and then you are not anymore globally competitive in terms of exporting goods. So now when you are not globally competitive, of course nations will buy less expensive commodities and goods. So when this business become with low revenue, then the domino effect now is that the unemployment and etc. So it's like there is a indirect effect of the Dutch disease, but little by little, eventually it will really become an economic threat to a certain country like Netherlands. So it will down, it will become it will fall into economic collapse of a country, and not only Netherlands but also the Venezuela. And there are some, yeah, cases really that Dutch disease exists. And let's focus on, when we focus on African countries, they have rich in diamond and oil, but how come they are very poor country? Because Dutch disease also comes into play. When this Dutch disease will come into play, there is always really an economic collapse. Now, Hong Kong is a very small country. They have no rich natural resources, but they are very progressive because they focus on their economy on foreign investors. Their GNP is more higher than their GDP, and they invest in their education, technology, infrastructure. So Adam Smith, in his book The Wealth of Nations, really emphasized that it is not the how the geography or the economic, the natural resources of a certain country will define this country as progressive or not, but it really, he cited this, a human sorry, human capital. Human capital means, um when people are smart, when people are intelligent, when people are educated, they will really, it is really an asset of the country, because um you know um it is really not how how is the natural resources of the country, but how the country can create. It's like in US, they open their trade. There's a fair trade. They open the fair trade. So Collier also wants this, that the international community must give favor to this bottom billion country, that they will lower their tariff and quota, so that they will rise, their economy will rise. They will, we can help them through this fair trade and liberalization. Now, so much for that. Let's go now to the third trap, which is called the landlocked trap. So when your country is landlocked, it is very disadvantaged economically, because with no ports, so the economy, it's very hard to transport your goods, export. You will rely your neighboring countries for that. Example, Uganda and Kenya. So Uganda rely, very dependent on Kenya, because Kenya has ports. So when you are not a friendly country, it will really become, there's really a economic disadvantage for a country when is not friendly with its neighboring countries. Just, for example, in Switzerland, Switzerland is a landlocked country, so Switzerland is not even a member of NATO. Switzerland maintains its neutrality when it comes to war. He Because it's a landlocked country, so yeah, you have to be neutral only. So it's really a disadvantage for some reason. And what else? In Asia, we have Nepal, is a landlocked country also. India and Pakistan. Now, um, Pakis, Pakistan and India is one country before, but Pakistan separated from India, and even Bangladesh is also part of Pakistan. Yeah, it's very confusing for this country. What These countries are very complicated, because right now even the Pakistan will on what, but they are very adorable people. They are what? They are good people, but only that, really the tensions between these countries, the tension is always rising, so it will affect economically for Pakistan. But right now I've learned that they align their economy in China, in this belt infrastructure project with China. So for the China to have access to Arabian Sea, because India and China is also this tension, there also conflict because of Kashmir and all. So with that, even the I'm sorry, Pakistan and China call themselves as Iron Brothers. So yeah, it has an economic advantage when you have friends with your, when you are landlocked and you have friends in your neighboring country. Next, the next is the what is the fourth trap? the fourth trap is poor governance. When a country has corrupt officials, poor governance, I'm sorry, it will really affect economically because you know, just like in Zimbabwe, when they have this, their country make money to elevate their economy. It's really it becomes a disadvantage for them. Sorry, because the value of the money, there's no value of their money anymore. So this results to closure in businesses and unemployment. So hyperinflation. So when your government is not has doesn't have a strategy, mismanagement, it will really result to economic collapse. So here in the Philippines also, yeah, there are times that we have this kodita. So because it's really yeah, poor governance. Now let's go to the development strategy. So Paul cited development strategies for this bottom billion to break free. So the first is liberalization, fair trade, and the G8 to reach out to African countries for them to be able to rise up economically. And then they must, in favor of them, less quota and tariff also he cited. And then the next one is when you are in landlocked country, you have to maximize your resources. So it's like you focus on e-services or your technology, and then coastal, and then air services, because you have no port, so you have to plan B, to make a plan, another plan. So you have to maximize now your access for air transport, like that. And then the third, military intervention. So UN is help, yeah, it made a UN help a lot in these African bottom billion countries. But it's not only food and, as what we all know, the money, but also a military aid. It can also be a good intervention. Why? Because just like here in the Philippines, we have U.S. military base here. So the rebels and the left wing and the people who are against the government, it will really subside. This people it will listen, yeah, it will listen the chaos because of this, the presence of the US, especially when the military forces in that specific country is very strong. So Paul Collier cited that a country will not only focus on its internal military forces, but also this country must outsource, must have alliances with the strong military, must outsource and have this, um, friends with alliances with the strong countries with strong military forces. So, and then encourage remittances. So in countries like Africa, educated individuals really going to abroad. They are going to look for greener pasture. So Paul encourage to these people, or the online OFW workers, to remit money to boost the economy of their country. And what else? the WTO participation, it will really also help a lot. The World Trade Organization in China become a member of WTO when they become turned into from agriculture country into the industrialized country, their economy really booms. So it will really good for a certain country to align or to have access to this organization, WTO, and many more, and a lot more. Yeah, there's a lot more organization, economic organization for them to help them elevate their economy. And also, what else? So that I think that's all for now. So that is all about the bottom billion. Thank you for listening.